A warm welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom, and you're watching youtube.com/getnuanced. And obviously, I think, as many people know, and I think as we can just see from observing politics, if you pay attention to them as closely as I do, at least US politics, that a mediocre system produces mediocre politicians, and that just makes reality in itself pretty mediocre. And I think that one of the things that really is one of the truest sources of mediocrity, that if anything should exist as its antithesis and serve as the tool that the public can use to inform themselves, but instead has become a bastardized, perverted kind of institution that, if anything, serves as a stenographer and propaganda arm of a just I don't know, just corporate syndicate of multinational interests that are more interested in their private wealth and their own concerns as they be it when it comes to geopolitics and consolidating their own power and self-interest than that they do of the broader populace and those who are the most vulnerable in our society and those who have been truly left behind, whether they be the blue collar workers who are now out of jobs due to the outsourcing of NAFTA and the TPP, which are the products of the neoliberal system that we're in right now, that has been something that both the Democrats and the Republicans, up till this point, including with Trump, Obama, Bush, and Bill Clinton, all these different people that have been alive for, and even the people before, they have all consistently been propping up this system when providing rhetoric that claims otherwise. And if anything, the people that should be pointing this out shouldn't be just people like me who are in their room giving their opinion. They're just some random person, some random asshole with an opinion. These should be the people with the blue check marks who are working, that have the fancy titles as editor-in-chief or editor-at-large, or all these different things that seem like they're titles that show that they're professionals who are people of their craft, that actually are caring about the quality and integrity of their work. They're trying to actually value transparency and honor the idea and concept of journalism and having an actual free press, but just like the idea of having a free country and actually having freedom of speech and just anything that actually would be genuinely free, I think has been perverted and corrupted and turned into just a mediocre character of what it's supposed to be. And the mainstream media is really what I'm talking about. And this just, mainstream just cesspool of just, I don't know, the worst possible elements and toxic parts of the American culture that I think that has largely displaced the sense of community that we should have with each other during a crisis like this, that has bred a lot of distrust and animosity, and I think misplaced anxiety and hatred towards people. And the reality is, I think a lot of the problems we need to be looked at from the top down, in the sense that the state itself has failed to meet its basic obligations. And that is not just a product of Trump or Obama. These types of people have a lot more in common than they do different, at least when it comes to their policies. And I think, if anything, if you look at the system as it stands right now, there is a lot of issues with it. And I think that instead of having these so-called journalists who are largely partying it up in DC and have offices and largely are socialites just like the political class and interface with them, these people are their friends. They're not their foes or people that will actually hold these people to account. They'll happily go along with the dystopian reality that we've, I guess, just accepted, when reality is we shouldn't have to accept this type of shit. And honestly, the mainstream media mostly talks about issues from a very shallow, substanceless point of view, which is about not character, just like this weird civility, that they always tout about being nice while the world is kind of on fire, and ignoring actual problems and not promoting critical thought, but instead encouraging ignorance and lowering people's attention spans. And just, with these sound bites, the fact that this culture is based around sound bites and 10-second long videos where we don't even bother to want to read or actually get to dig to the bottom and actually read the sources that might not necessarily be condensed and something that you could just kind of briefly skim through. There's things that actually require thoughtful approaches and years of studying and way more intelligent people than me to actually, or anyone I think that mostly is watching these videos, to try to be people that should be aspired to. And the reality is these people largely are clowns, and they are just sycophants and people that are benefiting from the current system. So are in no way trying to actually change it, but are going to masquerade as if they are still these righteous people that are deserving of these seven-figure salaries, like these talk show hosts that act like they're actually giving you the inside scoop when the reality is they're just distorting reality even more. And if anything, the reason why people like Bernie and Trump do so well is the fact that these people from CNN, like these characterless, just drones, like these, I don't know, they're NPCs. They make the NPC meme really make sense. These people don't care about policy substance. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about reality. They care about their bottom line and perpetuating the private interest and this kind of system right now that has left millions of Americans and people across the world feeling exploited, lost, and unfortunately neglected. And I think that that's something that's really a shame that doesn't have to be that way. And I think that the mainstream media itself is something that we should not take as seriously. I think at the end of the day, we need to all ask ourselves, what's really the difference between some person with a suit and tie who's paid to read off of a teleprompter and cover stories that have been selected by corporate sponsors or have to be produced within this Overton window of what's considered acceptable, doesn't fundamentally question the system or try to provide substantive solutions if they contradict the current notions of what makes the system and derives it and gives it its legitimacy as it stands at the moment. I think these are things that we need to start thinking about and really ignoring these suit and tie slimes who just spout out and talk. And they sound like they know what they're talking about, but a lot of times they don't, and are just people that will brag about their degree from whatever school they went to. But the reality is, outside of the managerial class lifestyle and maybe, a little bit above average intelligence, largely they are just regurgitating and reinforcing a system that is really going to be looked at historically as draconian at the time, whether it be centuries or a millennium from now, and one that the sooner we start transitioning out of and into one that is more equitable and also just reflective of an actual meritocratic society. We don't need to have equality in the sense of everyone being exactly equal. We can have a society where if you're a citizen, you feel like you have a place in the society and that your citizenship in a way should be something you should be proud of, and that there is a culture that fosters a sense of community, and that there is a state that actually tries to reinforce positive elements such as, decreasing poverty and ensuring that we are taking issues like the climate seriously in the sense that it's going to cause areas of the coast to recede and for there to be displacement of populations and for preparations for the next crisis or the ones that are going to happen within the century, having a long-standing view of the world. We need to start thinking about things and doing different things right now. And it seems like right now, these mainstream media goons are just reinforcing the mediocre class of politicians that we have, and themselves are super duper mediocre and are largely narcissistic and only look out for their own interests. People like Ellen DeGeneres, who claim that being quarantined in your house, which is probably an estate and a mansion for her, where she can just order out and eat wherever she wants whenever, has private staff probably catering to her whims, doesn't have to do her own dishes or whatever. She's comparing this to jail. Like, seriously, these people, she hung out with people like George Bush and acted like that, like was all right, this war criminal. And then on top of that, has the nerve to, I don't know, like have Obama, this dude who like he visited a hospital here in America during Christmas. That's great. But why don't we also talk about the fact that he authorized a drone strike that destroyed one of these hospitals in Afghanistan and killed a bunch of children. And I think that the reality is when it comes to these things, there's this double standard. And if we are the ones who are doing something wrong, somehow if we did it wrong anyways, even despite of that, it's for the right reason, I guess, even if we screwed up, when we would have never given that same sort of courtesy or benefit of the doubt to our opponents. And I think that that's inconsistent, dishonorable, and I think that's something we should try to change. And the mainstream media is not going to be this positive agent of change. If anything, independent media is going to be, and that's going to have to be those on both the left and the right, so-called. There should be consensus building between those who are genuine actors on both sides. And we need to start moving past this old system that keeps us largely divided on meaningless wedge issues and start being able to come together on things that we agree on, forge consensus, agree to disagree on certain issues, but largely accept that we're all living here, whether we're on the Democratic side or Republican side. I'm on neither. I'm an independent. And I think that we need to start thinking more outside of this bipartisan two-party system dichotomy, this box of just limitations that in this brave new world after the coronavirus that we're going to come out of soon, this traumatic experience, we need to start thinking radically different and changing what we think of as normality. If we're going to consider what the Obama era was as normal, it's just going to give us another situation where we have someone like Trump. And I'm trying to move past people like Obama and Trump. I want to have someone more in the lines of Bernie. At this point, even someone just with principle. I mean, even if I really deeply disagree with them, if they were genuine, even though I'm not a libertarian anymore, I might even be open to voting for Ron Paul. I don't even know. I just think at this point, the options we have are abysmal. And I think that right now we are in a lot of trouble considering that Joe Biden and Donald Trump, let that sink in. Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Donald Trump's a former reality TV star who has a litany of different issues. And so is Joe Biden in the sense that he is a product of corporatism and just riding off the wave of Obama's cult of personality and him being the vice president at the time, despite just all these just different historic issues that I mentioned in other videos. I'm not going to get completely into them again. It's just Joe Biden's a bad candidate. And I think that the mainstream media itself needs to, it's definitely fighting back, and it's also probably contributing towards the censoring of independent media on YouTube and also challenging the independent media's ability to be competitive. It's a shame because these corporate media outlets are largely financed by corporations and power companies that have ties to just interests that wouldn't necessarily be in favor of critical thought and are the types that have no problem with propaganda and spreading their own version of disinformation while at the same time claiming that Trump or someone else is the only person providing fake news. If anything, this entire system is screwed up. Trump's a symptom of a broader problem. And I think that the sooner we move past what we are dealing with right now and look towards I'm already looking towards 2024, honestly. But honestly, at this point, we need to start looking towards the future and hopefully the next generation of people, including in the journalists. I think independent media needs to continue to develop and challenge what is considered as a worthwhile source of information. And I think the younger generation can do just that. I think many people who are just like me, who have an interest in all this stuff, who want to be activists, who actually are genuine with their beliefs and are trying to look towards a better alternative, we can collaborate and have these types of forums where we're talking with each other. And I encourage you, if you have an agreement with me or want to talk, comment below and we'll have a discussion. And I think at the same time, I think we should all encourage ourselves to take the situation seriously and to critically think about these subjects and to not discount necessarily people on the internet if they're genuine, and you can gauge whether they're genuine or not. There are definitely fakers on the internet, but the reality is not everyone's a grifter. There are definitely actors out there who have, I think, through their policy prescriptions shown that they have an interest in the public good. Maybe not all of them see eye to eye, but I watch a lot of different people from all over the spectrum, and I think that we can move towards a better system and form coalitions and not actually have to be subjected to another election again where we have someone like Romney versus Obama or Bush versus Kerry or Clinton versus Bush, in the sense that we now have Trump versus Biden. And at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, America loses, and we need to start moving past what I think, again, coming back to the beginning of the video, is a mediocre system, which also has as a byproduct a mediocre journalism that has just completely lost its very meaning when it comes to, the idea of just being serious people that actually are challenging the powers that be, which is what journalism was originally about. And I originally, at one point when I was going to school, I remember wanting to be a journalist in high school. And I remember when I was in elementary school, I visited the Staten Island Advance growing up in Staten Island. And having been there, I thought that what they did at the time was so cool. And it's disappointing that I think that my perception was largely uninformed in the sense that maybe in the past, but at least now, and I think maybe even in the past too, things are looked at with more rose-colored glasses when it comes to the mainstream outlets. I think a lot of these mainstream outlets, maybe not the local ones like the Advance, maybe not, but I think largely, at least when it comes to the bigger national conglomerates, these parent companies like ABC, CBS, ABC is the parent company, is Disney, but like all these different stations, like the ones that are owned by Comcast or Time Warner, all these different media conglomerates, they are not looking out for our best interest. They're looking out for their profit motives and their best interest. And I think that we need to be conscious of that and start realizing that there should be a unified consensus against the corporate current stranglehold over how our political system is functioning, and maybe start looking at the fact that we're running out of time and we need to start doing things sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's just my opinions, and I'll definitely make more videos about this subject. Right now, I just wanted to give a brief kind of overview of how I look at the press and how I assess the information they provide. That's a cat meowing in the background. But hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next video. Make feel soon. This has been Tom. You've been watching YouTube.com/getnuanced, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.